I think it's a pretty good deal, actually. Two thoughts. One, Rwanda was supposed to be a deterrent, frankly, certainly for some people. Well, we don't know if it's going to be a deterrent because so far it seems that it's been inoperable. Whether that changes or not, we've got to wait until the autumn, it seems, for our courts to opine as to whether or not it's internationally legal for us to be doing it. I think it is. Our own courts have decided that it is. I think it's a nonsense that it should now be questioned, having gone through Parliament and our Parliament having passed legislation which makes it perfectly legal. You asked Yolanda a question about those coming in the other direction. As I understand it, this is potentially going to apply to about 50 people, not much more than that, of the most vulnerable, for whatever reason, are going to be able to come here. With regard to Rwanda being an appropriate place, a suitable place, there are 30,000 from Burundi who have gone there. There are 500 who have been sent from camps in Libya. And the United Nations High Commission for Refugees has been involved with all that. So why Rwanda should now suddenly become a place that's hostile and wrong and is going to abuse people, I just think that's absolutely horrific that people should be saying that, to be honest.
Matthew, where do you stand on that?
Look, I don't have a great moral quandary with the idea of the Rwanda solution. I think the legal quagmires the government's got itself into are a complete mess and show some issues with the operation of the law and the Human Rights Act. But I think at a more fundamental level, I'm actually quite sceptical about the idea that this is going to work as a deterrent. I think practically speaking, we don't know exactly how many people are going to potentially be sent to Rwanda, but it's not going to be thousands and thousands. It's not going to be everyone who arrives by boat. And if you're going to do a comparative here where you say, oh, they're trying to replicate the Australian system, what was essential to the Australian system was, A, no one who came by boat would be settled in Australia, but ultimately no one who came by boat would be processed in Australia. And that didn't matter how many people the people smugglers managed to send across on small boats. There was an ongoing deterrent. I just don't think sending a small number of people to Rwanda is going to end up having a big enough deterrent impact to stop the boats. I think this is going to ultimately be a policy distraction, and quite an expensive one at that, which isn't going to quite achieve the government's goals. I also do worry. I just get really worried about our discourse around asylum seekers to some extent. There's obviously something wrong about people smuggling. There's something wrong about people dying at sea, and I think that's absolutely terrible. I think that undermines support for immigration more broadly, and I don't like that whatsoever. But at the same time, we should have some empathy for people who are coming as asylum seekers. A lot of people who are coming as asylum seekers, for example, are coming from Afghanistan. We can appreciate that you might want to escape from the Taliban. A lot of people coming from asylum seekers...
because they are actually coming from France, aren't they?
Well, ultimately, just generally speaking, not necessarily those who come by boat. I just mean the fact that we should have a generous program for asylum seekers. And I think part of the way we can achieve that is by ensuring that we don't have people coming by boat and to ensure it's a kind of an organised system, which is obviously very difficult. The numbers are very high, but we should be generous as possible when it comes to the general case of asylum seekers.
We do have a very generous system when it comes to asylum seekers. We've allowed 1/3 people in since 2005. The Ukrainians, the Hong Kong citizens that we've...
No, I agree 100%.
Syrians...
I'm not saying that we're not being generous. I'm saying that...
There is a huge asylum, taking in asylum seekers, refugees. And we're second to none in that. In fact, we've resettled more people than any other European country over the last 10 years. That is a fact.
I'm not sure Poland would necessarily
suggest that sending people back to a safe country or moving them onto a safe country is somehow abusing their rights is a nonsense.
No, that's not what I said. What I said was we should be careful to be empathetic about asylum seekers in general.
Of course, we're empathetic.
And I don't think we're disagreeing here. I think.
No.
I do. No,
I'm all for empathy as well, Matthew.
I just want to make that broader point about the need to be empathetic to asylum seekers.
Treat people well.
I think one of the challenges, and this is certainly coming through on the inbox here, is when you hear about people being put up in hotels, 3 square meals a day, a little bit of pocket money. whatever. When you apply that to a country where people genuinely are struggling right now, you've got a huge homelessness problem in this country. I think the sense that I'm getting through from some of my viewers tonight is that there seems to be quite an unfairness in what's going on. Many people are saying this is all to do with the European human rights courts, basically. The lawyers, people are saying this is the lawyers getting involved. Lots of support coming through for Operation Sovereign Borders. Lots of people, again, picking up on this issue of how many people in this country are homeless. But again, I think the point that Matthew raises, this is not really, you can't really blame these people for getting in these boats, because if someone says to anyone, you know, you can go to this country, you'll be put up in a hotel, you can get this, you can get that, the other, whatever that is, you know, there is a large pull factor